Are you ready for more? Hollywood sure hopes you are, because follow-ups to fan-favorite movies in just about every genre are on the way. Some you may not even know existed.
Ever wonder what a sequel to Face Off or Heat might look like? You won't have to wonder for too much longer, because these action movies are getting sequels in the upcoming months and years. The Tomorrow War stars Chris Pratt as a military vet who gets drafted into a war against alien invaders. The big catch? The war is taking place 30 years in the future. That's a pretty interesting concept for sci-fi fans, but the film received mixed reviews by critics. Nevertheless, director Chris McKay may or may not be returning to the director's chair for The Tomorrow War 2, which he recently confirmed to be in development.
Second chances are really hard to come by.
When asked about a sequel by Uproxx in April 2023, McKay stated that a script is in the works. Originally slated for a theatrical release through Paramount, The Tomorrow War was ultimately bought and distributed by Prime Video as a consequence of the pandemic, making it one of the most expensive movies ever to debut on a streaming service. It may not have raked in cash at the box office, but its viewership stats were massive enough to earn it a sequel. No plot, casting, scheduling, or distribution details have been unveiled yet, though. The Extraction film star Chris Hemsworth as Tyler Rake, a former Australian SASR operator who now works as a Black Ops mercenary. The first film became Netflix's most-watched movie ever when it dropped on the streamer in April 2020, with 99 million views in its first month. The fact that everyone was quarantined in their homes at the time certainly helped. Understandably, 2023's Extraction 2 wasn't quite as popular, but it still did big numbers for Netflix. That's why it was announced that same year that a third Extraction is in development, as Hemsworth and director Sam Hargrave announced it at Netflix's To Doom global event in June of that year. Since then, all signs have pointed to the pre-production process moving smoothly, with Netflix head of film Scott Stuber teasing Idris Elba's return and emphasizing that the third installment is being developed carefully in order to live up to the first two. In May 2024, Chris Hemsworth told Collider, "We're in the middle of sort of writing, prepping, getting it ready. I don't know when we're gonna start, but it's in the works." Deadline has confirmed that a fourth Riddick movie is on the way, and is happening sooner than you might think. The Chronicles of Riddick franchise began in 2000 with Pitch Black, then continued with 2004's The Chronicles of Riddick and 2013's Riddick. Now, more than a decade later, Riddick Furya is about to begin production. With David Twohy once again handling writing and directing duties, the film will follow Richard B. Riddick's return to his home planet, Furya, of which he has little memory. There he finds that the people of Furya are embroiled in a struggle against a monster that threatens their existence. According to the official synopsis, some of these Furians are more like Riddick than he could have ever imagined. The international shoot, which will take place in Spain, Germany, and the UK, will begin on August 26, 2024.
Riddick's going home.
A sequel to Netflix's The Gray Man, an action thriller starring Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, and Ana de Armas, is currently in the pipeline. Directed by Anthony and Joe Russo, who captivated the world years earlier with Avengers: Infinity War and Endgame, The Gray Man became one of the most-watched Netflix movies of all time, following its release in 2022. By the end of its first 28 days on the platform, it had already clocked close to 250 million watch hours. Little information on the sequel has been disclosed, but we do know that development is going strong thanks to an interview given by the Russos to Total Film in April 2024. During the interview, Joe Russo explained that the film is still finding its footing story-wise, saying, "We're developing concepts we think are the right decision to take Gosling's character in, and so we are working on that at the moment." The David Harbour starring 2022 flick Violent Night was the biggest Christmas-themed actioner since Die Hard, featuring the Stranger Things actor as a gritty version of Santa Claus going up against a team of mercenaries. Naturally, talk of a sequel began not long after the film's release. According to producers Kelly McCormick and David Leitch, a follow-up is indeed happening, with pre-production going swimmingly so far. Universal is reportedly optimistic about the potential for a full-fledged franchise. The pair spoke with Collider at South by Southwest 2024, and revealed that there's a lot of behind-the-scenes enthusiasm for the Violent Night sequel, including from Harbour himself, who's eager to put on the red and white outfit once again. Although the schedules of the various parties involved have been difficult to coordinate, McCormick revealed that several drafts of the screenplay have already been written, and also that there's a possibility Violent Night 2 could start filming as soon as the beginning of 2025.
Another Christmas.
Red Notice shattered a stunning Netflix record by scoring the biggest opening day ever for one of the streamer's originals in 2021. That led to not one, but two sequels being greenlit. As Netflix head of film Scott Stuber revealed to Collider in November 2023, one of those sequels is currently well into the development process. At the time of the interview with Stuber, a final draft of the screenplay for Red Notice 2 was said to be near completion. Netflix has been in no hurry to make up for lost time to the Hollywood strikes when it comes to the film's development, and doesn't seem to be rushing the scripting process along. Stuber said that he was shooting for a late 2024 production start, so with the script nearly finalized and ready to go, production on the long-awaited sequel to the action comedy film should be starting sooner rather than later. Stuber didn't give an update on Red Notice 3, despite Deadline reporting that the two sequels would be shot back-to-back. A sequel to Nobody, the unexpected 2021 hit starring Bob Odenkirk as a mild-mannered family man who gets thrust back into his violent past, is set to be released in 2025. As reported by Collider, Nobody 2 is set to start shooting from August to October 2024, once again starring Odenkirk as Hutch Mansell and Connie Nielsen as his wife Becca. This time around, original director Ilya Naishuller will not be in the hot seat. Instead, Nobody 2 will be directed by Indonesian director Timo Tjahjanto, and if it's anything like his intense 2018 actioner The Night Comes for Us, Hutch's enemies are going to be put through the ringer even worse this time around.
I'm gonna you up.
With a capable filmmaker at the helm and a likable veteran actor in the lead, everything seems to be on track for a release date of August 15th, 2025. A sequel to Gunpowder Milkshake was announced before the film had even hit cinemas by way of a special presentation from distributor Studio Canal at the 2021 Cannes Film Festival. Although not a lot of development details have come out about it since then, we can assume that the sequel is still being worked on, as neither Studio Canal nor Netflix have announced anything to the contrary. Given that the first Gunpowder Milkshake was released directly to Netflix, along with a limited theatrical release in the United States and Canada in 2021, we don't know much about the film's financial metrics and whether or not it became profitable. What we do know is that it topped the US Nielsen ratings for its release week, so it's entirely possible that it made enough bank to prompt a sequel. Still, no production, plots, or cast details about Gunpowder Milkshake 2 have been unveiled just yet. At the same 2021 Cannes presentation in honor of Studio Canal's 30th anniversary that saw the announcement of Gunpowder Milkshake 2, further details were also unveiled on the previously announced sequel to 2011's Attack the Block. The British cult favorite action comedy sci-fi horror romp about alien creatures invading a council estate in South London will be followed up by another installment from writer-director Joe Cornish. Cornish, Naira Park, and Edgar Wright will be producing through Complete Fiction Pictures, the production company they launched together in 2018. John Boyega, who had his breakthrough in the first film and will once again be headlining the cast, is also signing on as a producer through his Upper Room Productions. In a statement published by The Hollywood Reporter at the time, Boyega said, "Moses has remained one of my favorite characters to play, and bringing him back is a huge honor." Cornish, meanwhile, has stated that he wants Attack the Block 2 to live up to iconic sci-fi sequels like Aliens and Terminator 2: Judgment Day. Very few people expected a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie to be fresh, exciting, and visually stunning in 2023. But Jeff Rowe's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem pulled it off by turning to the medium of animation. The film became a critical and box office success, and a sequel was soon confirmed by Paramount with a release date already set. Donatello, Michelangelo, Leonardo, and Raphael will return on October 9th, 2026. Rowe is expected to return as director along with the main voice cast of Micah Abbey, Shamon Brown Jr., Nicholas Cantu, Brady Noon, and Iowa Debary as the Ninja Turtles face off against their most iconic foe, the Shredder. Shredder's arrival was teased at the end of the first film, and Rowe is excited about what that means for the Turtles. As he told Empire, "It'll be really interesting to see these fun-loving characters go up against something that maybe they can't stop."
You watch a movie with a humans? Ugh.
You ratted us out.
Hey, don't use that word that way.
Paramount Pictures announced in January 2024 that a sequel to Top Gun Maverick would be happening, a major turn of events for a franchise that boasts a 36-year gap between the first two installments. It's not exactly a surprising one though, given that Maverick took breaking the box office to a whole new level with its nearly $1.5 billion haul. Producer Jerry Bruckheimer gave an update on the sequel during an interview with Screen Rant in March 2024, stating that Maverick director Joseph Kosinski came up with a story idea to Tom Cruise's producers' liking and was presently developing it into a screenplay. No one other than them knows what the story idea is, but Cruise, Glenn Powell, and Miles Teller are all expected to return. According to Bruckheimer, now it's all a matter of whether or not Cruise will approve of Kaczynski's script and find time in his busy schedule to bring back Pete Maverick Mitchell once again. A sequel to 1997's Face Off was announced in 2022, with Godzilla vs. Kong director Adam Wingard at the helm and his frequent collaborator Simon Barrett handling writing duties. Wingard played coy about the project's concrete prospects though, stating that it could only be done if both John Travolta and Nicolas Cage agreed to sign on as Sean Archer and Castor Troy. In April 2024, it was reported by Daniel Richtman that Cage and Travolta will indeed be coming back for Face Off 2.
The eternal battle between good and evil, saint and sinner.
Spoiler alert for the original film, but this is likely to force many fans into a reinterpretation of its ending, which appeared to kill Troy rather decisively. However, Simon Barrett has stated that he never believed that Troy's death was for real, since his body wasn't covered up as he was loaded into the ambulance. If that's the case, he probably spends the next 20-something years in prison or in a coma, waiting to be unleashed in Face Off 2. A fourth Rush Hour installment has been teased again and again in the entertainment press for years now. More recently, fan excitement for the film has been ramped up by encouraging updates from Chris Tucker, who confirms the project's existence in 2018. Jackie Chan, who revealed in 2017 that a script he approved of had finally been completed, said in 2022 that the Rush Hour 4 script was still being discussed. Then in 2023, Tucker once again stated that Rush Hour 4 was among his intended upcoming projects. No official announcements have yet been made by Warner Brothers regarding such a movie though, with the studio having long since cut ties with Brett Ratner following sexual misconduct accusations. It's unlikely that he'd be returning to the director's chair, but development has apparently been happening for years now, and both Tucker and Chan seem excited about it. Michael Mann is known for his action-packed character studies, and none are more exciting than 1995's Heat. This nearly 3-hour-long crime epic set Robert De Niro's professional thief Neil McCauley up against Al Pacino's bombastic cop Vincent Hanna, and their story seemed to come to a pretty decisive conclusion at the Los Angeles International Airport. So, how could Mann possibly continue this story? You can find out by reading his 2022 novel, Heat 2, which is being adapted into a feature film of the same name. In the tradition of notable similarly themed second installments like The Godfather Part 2, Heat 2 acts as both a prequel and a sequel, and even a sidequel, flashing back and forth in time. As far as casting goes, nothing has been confirmed, but GQ has reported that Adam Driver, Ana de Armas, Austin Butler, and Jeremy Allen White are among the actors rumored to be involved with the sequel/prequel.
This crew is good.
1993's Cliffhanger is among the most financially successful films of Sylvester Stallone's career, and plans for a sequel were being made as early as 1994. That second installment, which would have seen Sly locking horns with terrorists at the Hoover Dam, never materialized, with various writers and directors walking through the revolving doors over the decades. Finally, in May 2023, the project got a fresh start as a legacy sequel. Director Rick Roman-Waugh replaced Anna Lily Amirpour, who had been slated to helm a female-fronted reboot. Later in December 2023, Screen Daily reported that Waugh had also been replaced, this time by French filmmaker Jean-Francois Richet. But the film itself is still very much happening. The project will be a co-production between the US, the UK, and Germany, with Stallone set to star once again as rescue ranger Gabe Walker. He may be pushing 80, but it looks like he's still got what it takes to survive in the mountains. A sequel to Netflix's action-heavy superhero flick, The Old Guard, which ended on a massive sequel-launching cliffhanger, has already been filmed, but no release date has been announced. Actor Matthias Schoenaerts revealed to Collider in February 2024 that the delay seemed to be due to the changes in Netflix management, with Greg Peters having taken over from Reed Hastings as co-CEO, alongside Ted Sarandos. Schoenaerts claimed, "We shot it approximately a year and a half ago, and I think they're hitting the last stage of post-production. As far as I've understood, I think there's been a switch at Netflix higher. I think there's a different CEO, so that leads to a reconsidering of release, and how and when, and that's not up to me." That was confirmed by Charlize Theron, who will be joined in the sequel by much of the original supporting cast, as well as newcomers Uma Thurman and Henry Golding.
Whether it's the threat of a futuristic digital consciousness, a rampaging cyborg, or just a whole lot of displaced dinosaurs, these sci-fi sequels are waiting to strike. If you thought that Jurassic World Dominion was the end of the Jurassic saga, think again. It turns out a new picture is underway with original Jurassic Park scribe David Koepp leading the charge. But instead of Colin Trevorrow or Steven Spielberg directing, sci-fi stalwart Gareth Edwards is taking over for the next dinosaur blockbuster. As he told Collider at an event in February 2024, "This is the only movie that would make me drop everything like a stone and dive right in. I love Jurassic Park." Scarlett Johansson, Mahershala Ali, Jonathan Bailey, and Rupert Friend have been confirmed to star, and production began in June 2024. As of now, the project has a release date of July 2nd, 2025, nestling it right between upcoming features like James Gunn's Superman reboot and Disney and Pixar's sci-fi flick Elio.
Life, finds a way.
For years, fans wondered if a third Tron was in the cards. Though plans for a continuation were once announced, a direct sequel to 2010's Tron Legacy never happened, with Disney focusing on Star Wars and Marvel Cinematic Universe movies instead. Though initially attached to the threequel, Legacy director Joseph Kosinski eventually moved on to bigger things like Top Gun Maverick, but a third Tron wasn't entirely dead. In 2017, a reboot film was in development, but it wasn't until January 2023 that Kon-Tiki director Joachim Roning was hired to direct Tron Ares. Principal photography began a year later. Despite initial claims that the movie would be a series reboot, original Tron star Jeff Bridges is returning, which seems to confirm some kind of continuity, though whether he's returning as Kevin Flynn or the program Clue is currently unknown. Bridges revealed on the Film Comment podcast, "Jared Leto is the star of this third one. I'm really anxious to work with him. I've admired his work." At the time, Ares was still in production, but Bridges has since concluded work on the film, and it's now set to hit theaters on October 10th, 2025. If you've been paying attention to the Skyline franchise, which launched over a decade ago, you might be familiar with its two sequels, Beyond Skyline and Skylines. You might not know that a fourth feature is coming sometime in 2025. Originally titled Skyline Radial, Skyline Warpath is set 5 years after the last two installments and follows Iko Uwais' Sua and Scott Adkins' Eric as they deal with the continuing alien threat. Unlike the original disaster film, Warpath will combine martial arts with the standard alien invasion plot. Franchise co-creator Liam O'Donnell, who directed the previous two and co-wrote the original, returns to the director's chair. O'Donnell has said that the film was partially inspired by Star Trek, but that's not the only major Hollywood franchise the creative team is pulling from. As he told Deadline in 2020, "As crazy as it sounds, we see this as our own niche version of a Fast 5/Avengers type of sequel where we are bringing together the characters from previous installments into a bigger, crowd-pleasing sci-fi martial arts adventure." For a while, the Predator franchise felt directionless, with various sequels getting cancelled over the years, making fans wonder if we would ever get another solid installment again. Hulu changed all that with the release of Prey in 2022, and audiences and critics alike raved about the standalone prequel. Many praised Prey as the best of the series since the original 1987 film, and it's not hard to see why. It even broke streaming records for Hulu, so another Predator movie seemed almost inevitable. The next Dan Trachtenberg-directed Predator installment is currently titled Badlands. Like its predecessor, the film will feature a female lead, with Elle Fanning confirmed to star, and is rumored to be set in the future rather than the past. While no official release date has been set, the film will likely go into production sometime in 2024. In addition to Trachtenberg's next picture, a more direct Prey sequel is also in active development, with Amber Midthunder likely to return. If Prey 2 does happen, it would mark the first Predator sequel with a returning lead actor. When Disney acquired Lucasfilm, they were quick to pursue a variety of Star Wars anthology films that detailed different characters or events throughout the universe. Rogue One and Solo ended up being the only theatrically released of these anthology projects, with others like Obi-Wan Kenobi and The Book of Boba Fett being reworked into streaming miniseries. And while Solo received mixed reviews, Donald Glover's portrayal of a young Lando Calrissian was highly praised, with many hoping to see more of his take on Billy D. Williams' original trilogy character.
Hello, what have we here?
Disney saw potential in young Lando too. Though a Lando series was originally announced as a Disney Plus event, it was revealed in September 2023 that the project was actually a feature film. Donald Glover is set to star, but after Billy D. Williams' return in The Rise of Skywalker, it's possible that both the older and younger versions of the character could appear. Though many assumed that The Rise of Skywalker would effectively close that chapter of the Star Wars universe, another Rey-centered feature is in the works with Daisy Ridley set to return. Miss Marvel director Charmin Obed-Chinoy is set to helm this sequel, which is being penned by Stephen Knight of Peaky Blinders fame. The project was first announced at the 2023 Star Wars Celebration, and is set to follow Rey as she establishes a new Jedi Order in the wake of Luke Skywalker's death. Right now, it's unclear if this film will bring back other sequel trilogy characters like John Boyega's Finn or Oscar Isaac's Poe Dameron, but given the period set to be explored, we wouldn't be surprised if we saw some familiar faces. We may even see the Force ghost of Luke Skywalker as Rey carries on his legacy. As of July 2024, the project has been confirmed to still be in development. Since its release in 1999, it's safe to say that The Matrix has always been something of a classic. Though the lackluster sequels have left a lot to be desired, fans have kept returning to the artificial world the Wachowskis dreamed up decades ago. It was Lawrence Fishburne's Morpheus who first gave Neo that infamous choice in the original film.
You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes.
Unfortunately, Fishburne didn't return for the 2022 revival, The Matrix Resurrections, which recast a new version of Morpheus with Yahya Abdul-Mateen II. Despite that, fans have still held fast to the original character, and there have been rumblings of a Morpheus prequel for years. In 2017, the first rumor circulated that Michael B. Jordan would play a young Morpheus in a prequel film written by Zach Penn. Penn said in 2019 that his film was set earlier in the timeline than Resurrections. Unfortunately, we haven't heard much about Penn's prequel project since, but in April 2024, Warner Brothers announced their plans for a new Matrix film from the Martian scribe Drew Goddard, who will also direct the picture. After 3 relatively successful Star Trek reboot films were released between 2009 and 2016, a 4th picture from Paramount seemed like a natural next step. Producer J.J. Abrams teased that Chris Pine and Chris Hemsworth would both return, but by August 2018, Hemsworth and Pine exited the project. From there, Star Trek IV's fate looked sealed. As shows like Discovery and Picard kept eyes on the franchise's original timeline, the possibility of revisiting Abrams' alternate universe continuity felt slim. Paramount's constant delays didn't help either. But in February 2022, Star Trek IV was re-announced with Abrams producing, Pine seemingly back on board, and the promise that the rest of the cast would follow. Though the film was slated to hit theaters on December 22, 2023, this also fell apart, with director Matt Shakman exiting the project. Shortly after, Paramount pulled the sequel from its release schedule, but even this setback hasn't killed the Enterprise crew just yet. In January 2024, Paramount reaffirmed its plans for more Trek pictures, including a still untitled Star Trek IV, which is now being considered the final chapter of the reboot franchise. If you're still confused about whether the 2014 Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt sci-fi adventure is called Live, Die, Repeat or Edge of Tomorrow, or some combination of the two, you aren't the only one. But that confusion didn't stop both critics and audiences from loving the manga-inspired action flick. As early as 2015, screenwriter Christopher McQuarrie told Collider that the idea for a sequel was ready to go, and director Doug Liman has continued to tease the project for years, revealing the potential title to be Live, Die, Repeat, and Repeat. Emily Blunt has also expressed interest in returning, noting that Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible films keep getting in the way. In January 2024, a deal was struck between Cruise and Warner Brothers that even further opened the door for the sequel. Though no official announcement has been made, we're closer now to an Edge of Tomorrow follow-up than ever before. The entire Stargate timeline is something of a nightmare to navigate, but generally speaking, it consists of the original 1994 film, 3 live-action television series, an animated show, some made-for-TV movies, and a miniseries prequel. If that sounds confusing, that's probably why Amazon/MGM is looking to reboot the franchise after all these years. Back in 2022, Amazon was open to pitches for a number of the properties they obtained from MGM, including the beloved sci-fi adventure series. Though a television continuation of the Stargate SG-1 timeline was previously in development, those plans fell through during the COVID-19 pandemic. SG-1 co-creator Brad Wright told fans in a 2022 Reddit AMA, "I suspect they're also considering starting fresh without any of the baggage of previous iterations." As of April 2023, Amazon was still working on developing both film and television Stargate projects, with talks currently discussing a feature to kick the whole thing off. Hopefully we can get another gate open soon. Also acquired in Amazon's purchase of MGM was the RoboCop franchise.
I'd buy that for $1.
The series currently consists of 3 movies, 4 series, some video games and comics, and a 2014 remake that didn't quite live up to the hype. Over the years, there have been various rumors of some sort of RoboCop continuation, like a direct sequel to the original 1987 action flick, a continuation of the 2014 reboot, a Neil Blomkamp-directed follow-up, and the Abe Forsyth-helmed RoboCop Returns. In each case, RoboCop failed to live again. Amazon's buyout of MGM prompted the streamer's plans to develop RoboCop into both a television series as well as a feature film. Though these plans were announced in early 2023, there haven't been any updates. Given all the other revival films being made today, it's possible we might get another RoboCop in the future. Will Peter Weller return to the role as he did for the 2023 video game RoboCop Rogue City? With no filmmakers attached and no pending release date, we aren't holding our breath for a movie anytime soon.
It's hard to make a horror movie sequel that lives up to the original, but that hasn't stopped plenty of filmmakers from trying. These frightening follow-ups to fan-favorite flicks are currently in development. A sequel to the 2005 movie Constantine doesn't seem like something that would go into production nowadays, even though the Keanu Reeves starring adaptation of DC Vertigo's Hellblazer comics has a cult following. It was never a huge hit, while Warner Brothers has gone through 5 different corporate regimes and a gazillion different plans for its DC movies over the past 2 decades.
I could use a little attention. Please.
Reeves and director Francis Lawrence's desire for a sequel, which Lawrence wants to push into even scarier directions, may very well pay off. WB officially announced development on Constantine II in September 2022, with Akiva Goldsman working on the script. Despite the studio bringing in James Gunn to completely reboot its main DC movie slate just a few months later, Lawrence confirmed that these plans would not affect Constantine II, which may possibly be released as an Elseworlds movie outside the standard DC continuity. Film distribution company A24 is no stranger to success in the horror genre, but Talk to Me was a true breakout smash. The Filippo brothers' supernatural Fright Fest grossed $92.2 million on a $4.5 million budget, more than any other horror movie released by the label, unless you consider Civil War a horror movie. A sequel, tentatively titled Talk to Me, was revealed to be in development just a couple of weeks after the first film's theatrical release in summer 2023. While fans wait for more news on the sequel, a prequel could potentially arrive any day now. Before Talk to Me even hit theaters, the Filippos had already shot an entire film about Duckett, one of the victims in the first film's opening scene. However, Danny Filippo seemed uncertain whether or not this social media-focused prequel would actually see the light of day, telling The Hollywood Reporter, "Maybe down the line we can release that." If they've shot the whole thing already, and A24 wants to build Talk to Me into a full series, it would be a strange move to not release the already filmed movie. Moviegoers could expect a new Final Destination movie in theaters every few years during the 2000s, each with a new crop of high school or college students trying and failing to outrun death itself before being killed in creatively over-the-top scenarios. But then the series came to a standstill after Final Destination 5 in 2011. Actor Tony Todd claimed that the producers planned to shoot the 6th and 7th films back-to-back if the 5th installment opened at number 1, but it only reached number 3.
Please. You'll wake the dead.
A 6th film was confirmed to be in development in 2019, initially announced as a reboot before series creator Jeff Riddick backed away from the term. Production on the movie, titled Final Destination Bloodlines and directed by Zach Lipovsky and Adam Stein, got delayed twice due to the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020 and the SAG-AFTRA strike in 2023. It finally completed filming in May 2024. Originally set up as an HBO Max release, Final Destination Bloodlines is now slated for a theatrical and IMAX release sometime in 2025, celebrating the 25th anniversary of the original film. A new film from legendary director George A. Romero might be the last thing anyone would expect to hit theaters in the near future, especially since the acclaimed filmmaker died in 2017. That said, it's simply too perfect that an unfinished screenplay from the man responsible for Night of the Living Dead and its sequels, along with much of the zombie horror subgenre in general, ended up rising from the grave. Romero was working on the script for Twilight of the Dead, the 7th and final film in his Living Dead series, when he passed away. In 2021, his widow Suzanne announced plans to finish the script in collaboration with Joe Netter, Robert L. Lucas, and original co-writer Paolo Salati. She told The Hollywood Reporter, "This is the film he wanted to make, and while someone else will carry the torch as the director, it's very much a George A. Romero film." 2 years later, in 2023, Brad Anderson signed on as the new director. He planned to shoot the film as soon as the SAG-AFTRA strike ended, but no additional information on the production has been revealed since then. The Insidious franchise has pumped out sequels on a regular enough basis that news of the 6th installment, currently scheduled for release on August 29, 2025, shouldn't come as a surprise. But even if you've already marked your calendar for the next chapter in this saga of paranormal investigators versus vengeful demons, you might not have heard that a spin-off movie is also in the works. Thread, an Insidious tale, will star Mandy Moore and Kumail Nanjiani as a couple using time travel spells to undo their daughter's death. Jeremy Slater, the screenwriter who developed The Umbrella Academy and Moon Knight for streaming, plans to make his directorial debut with the project. It was first announced in May 2023, and there hasn't been any news about a release date since. If the spin-off does well, it's possible that the Insidious franchise could follow in the footsteps of its James Wan-launched possession series The Conjuring and expand into a full-blown cinematic universe. Premiering at Cannes in 2014 and released in America in 2015, the sexually transmitted monster movie It Follows ranks among the most acclaimed films of the 2010s indie horror wave. Tom Quinn, co-president of distribution company Radius TWC, expressed interest in a sequel shortly after its release. That project never came to fruition, though, and that probably has something to do with the fact that the TWC in the company's name stands for the Weinstein Company. The label went quiet, and director David Robert Mitchell took his talents elsewhere for his next project, the sprawling neo-noir Under the Silver Lake. Unfortunately for him, though, polarized reception earned him a stint in so-called director jail for a few years. Quinn, however, remained interested in pursuing the sequel to It Follows at his new company, Neon. In October 2023, Neon officially announced the sequel They Follow, with Mitchell coming back to write and direct and Micah Monroe returning as lead character Jay Height. Production is expected to begin sometime in 2025.
Even though it's following you, I can still see it. It's not done with me either, okay?
Lionsgate spent nearly $20 million for the rights to the horror comedy The Blackening at the 2022 Toronto International Film Festival. While the film didn't quite make all that money back in theaters in the summer of 2023, it still more than tripled its tiny budget and earned positive reviews. As such, the studio expressed interest in developing a sequel with original screenwriters Tracy Oliver and Dwayne Perkins, the latter of whom also played a character in the movie. Because it's still so early in development, not many details are known about what this second Blackening would entail, or when we might get to see it. However, Perkins told Variety that he'd want to bring back the cast of the first film while throwing them into a new scenario, comparing his vision to the Scary Movie franchise. That said, he teased that new characters would also be introduced in a sequel, saying, "I feel like we've got something good, and I love the dynamic, but fresh blood always turns things up a little bit." A lot has changed in the years since 28 Days Later brought new life to the zombie subgenre in 2002. Its breakout star, Cillian Murphy, grew in fame thanks to Peaky Blinders and his collaborations with director Christopher Nolan, eventually winning an Oscar, a Golden Globe, and numerous other awards for his lead role in Oppenheimer. Director Danny Boyle also picked up a Best Director Oscar for Slumdog Millionaire. And screenwriter Alex Garland became a respected auteur in his own right, directing films like Ex Machina and Civil War. Murphy, Boyle, and Garland all sat out the 2007 sequel 28 weeks later, but the three are reuniting for the upcoming 28 years later. It won't just be one movie, though. Sony Pictures plans to release 3 more films in the series, with the first hitting theaters on July 20th, 2025. Danny Boyle doesn't plan on returning for Part 2, though. Instead, Nia DaCosta, the director of the Candyman reboot and The Marvels, will take the lead on the project, which copyright filings hint will be subtitled The Bone Temple. Producing long multi-chapter series all at once doesn't always pay off, but anyone who loved the original 28 Days Later is likely to be intrigued by this long-awaited continuation. Not many sequels flat out ignore the theatrical cut of the previous film and instead build upon an alternate ending only available on home video. In fact, I Am Legend 2 might just be the first. Talking to Deadline about the upcoming sequel, screenwriter Akiva Goldsman revealed, "We trace back to the original Matheson book and the alternate ending as opposed to the released ending in the original film. What Matheson was talking about was that man's time on the planet as the dominant species had come to an end. That's a really interesting thing we're going to get to explore." Will Smith was announced to be reprising his role as Robert Neville, who perished in the theatrical version of the film but survived in the alternate ending. His casting was announced just weeks before the infamous slap at the 2022 Academy Awards. Although the box office success of Bad Boys Ride or Die seems to show that Smith is still more than capable of selling blockbusters. He won't be flying solo though, as Michael B. Jordan will co-star in I Am Legend 2.
If there's anybody out there, anybody, please, you are not alone.
The Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark books, written by Alvin Schwartz and originally illustrated by Stephen Gammell, have turned countless children into horror fans over the years. Naturally, it only made sense that a handful of frightening tales from the books would be adapted into a feature film that, while meant primarily for younger audiences, still features plenty of genuine frights. There are 3 books in the series, meaning that there's plenty more monstrous material left for director Andre Overdahl to bring to the big screen. Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark 2 was first announced way back in 2020. While doing press for his 2023 Dracula movie, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, Overdahl confirmed to IGN that, despite delays from COVID and the WGA and SAG strikes, the sequel was still in the works, saying simply, "We have a story, we have a script." Following the conclusion of the strikes, star Zoe Colletti told The Direct, "I will be so thrilled and excited for when I get to finally read a script and see what's been going on." In July 2021, Netflix released a full trilogy of movies inspired by R.L. Stine's Fear Street books, originally intended for theatrical release before the Disney-Fox merger. There was immediate interest in making more, but it took a while to figure out what form the franchise's future would take. Lee Janiak, director of the first 3 films, expressed an interest in making a 1950s set slasher to follow up. Watcher director Chloe Okuno was announced to be directing her own Fear Street movie in late 2022, but the next installment in the saga is instead being helmed by Caliber director Matt Palmer. This new standalone Fear Street flick, officially called Fear Street Prom Queen, began production in March 2024. Based on Stine's 1992 novel, it follows a series of mysterious disappearances among Shady Side High's class of '88. The ensemble for this prom gone wrong teen horror flick includes India Fowler, Susanna Sun, Fina Straza, David Iacono, Ella Rubin, Ariana Greenblatt, Lily Taylor, and Catherine Waterston. It looks like Troll 2 might be coming to Netflix in the near future, and not the 1989 Claudio Fragazzo disaster piece that's widely considered to be one of the worst horror movies ever made.
Oh my God!
The newer Troll 2 is instead a sequel to the solidly reviewed 2022 Norwegian monster movie Troll, directed by Roar Uthaug and released by Netflix. After breaking viewership records for non-English films on the streaming platform, Netflix requested the first film's crew return for a sequel, scheduled to shoot as early as 2024. Producers Espen Horn and Christian Strand Sinkerud told Variety, Troll 2 is again spinning on a Norwegian fairy tale figure, played, directed, and produced by Norwegians. Presumably, this particular Troll 2 won't involve vegetarian goblins turning people into plants by feeding them green goop and getting defeated by a double-decker bologna sandwich. Instead, it'll almost certainly be another action-packed monster movie infused with Scandinavian mythology. Considering its impressive box office, viral popularity, and cliffhanger ending, it's no surprise that Megan will be receiving a sequel. The announcement of the aptly titled Megan 2.0, which is currently scheduled for release on June 27, 2025, made waves online as fans celebrated the return of the killer robot doll. That said, production company Blumhouse wasn't content with just one addition to the budding franchise, as they later announced the production of a rather unusual spin-off. Soulmate, spelled with an 8 instead of an A, seems to be veering into erotic thriller territory. The plot, which involves a man trying to replace his dead wife with an android who accidentally turns deadly, is likely to court a different audience from the PG-13 movie it's based on. Evil Dead Rise star Lily Sullivan is set to star as the malevolent AI, with David Risdall in the role of the grieving husband. Claudia Dumit from The Boys has also been confirmed as a cast member. Kate Dolan, director of the Irish horror film You Are Not My Mother, is directing and rewriting a script first drafted by Raphael Jordan. Soulmate will arrive in theaters on January 2nd, 2026.
Love to laugh? Well, you're in luck because some of the greatest comedies of all time are getting sequels, and they're coming sooner than you might think. Director Rob Reiner made some fantastic films in the 1980s, including 1984's This Is Spinal Tap. The iconic mockumentary features Michael McKean, Harry Shearer, and Christopher Guest as members of the fictional band Spinal Tap, who are followed by a documentary crew while they embark on an American tour.
If you can see, the numbers all go to 11.
Despite being a cult classic, few imagined the movie would ever get a follow-up. And yet, in 2022, news of a sequel broke. The stars are all back, as is Reiner as director. Not only will the entire band return for the new film a whopping 40 years after the original's release, but it will feature a number of musicians in cameo roles, including Paul McCartney, Questlove, Garth Brooks, Trisha Yearwood, Lars Ulrich, Elton John, and many, many more. Spinal Tap II began filming in early 2024. The movie was originally set to hit theaters in March, though delays related to the Hollywood strikes placed that date out of reach. According to Reiner, the goal is now a 2025 release. Hollywood has produced several Freaky Friday remakes since the first movie's release in 1976. The most popular of these was released in 2003, starring Jamie Lee Curtis and Lindsay Lohan as a mother and daughter who switch bodies via a magical fortune cookie. A sequel to this hugely successful remake was always possible, but Lindsay Lohan's legal troubles likely prevented it from happening at the time. Thankfully, Lohan overcame her problematic period and returned to acting as an adult. Fans of the original Freaky Friday received some welcome news in May 2023 when Disney confirmed that a sequel was in the works. Girls and Brooklyn Nine-Nine director Nisha Ganatra is set to helm the movie, with Lohan and Curtis reprising their roles. According to Curtis, the shoot was both fun and emotional.
We came together for 42 days and just laughed a lot, cried a lot.
Titled Freakier Friday, the highly anticipated sequel is set for a 2025 release. Watching 1993's Hocus Pocus has become a Halloween tradition for many. Disney capitalized on the film's cult status by releasing Hocus Pocus 2 in 2022, which broke debut weekend streaming records with 2.7 billion minutes of views. The Sanderson sisters all came back for the second movie, and it seems they're set to return for a third outing too. Speaking to Entertainment Weekly, screenwriter Jen D'Angelo said that while everyone was charmed by the younger iterations of the Sanderson sisters in the second film, the third would focus firmly on the adult versions of the characters. D'Angelo also said that the project was still in the story phase, though it seems like one of the characters introduced in the second film will feature more prominently in the upcoming sequel. D'Angelo teased, "We've only scratched the surface of Hannah Waddingham's Mother Witch." Hocus Pocus 3 is in full development at Disney with an estimated $100 million budget, so the studio is clearly committed to the franchise. Unfortunately, a release date hasn't yet been confirmed, but it stands to reason that the movie will release in October 2025 to coincide with the Halloween season. There have been two films in the Sister Act franchise to date. The original was released in 1992, and a follow-up hit theaters the following year. And although it's been a while since Whoopi Goldberg put on The Habit, a third film is most definitely on the way. In fact, it's been in the pipeline for quite some time now. Disney began development of Sister Act 3 back in 2018. Little information has trickled out since then, however, with nothing concrete on the plot or the release date yet. Here's what we do know about Sister Act 3, though. High School Musical, the series creator Tim Federle will helm the film, with a script written by Three Body Problem screenwriter Madhuri Shikar. It took a long time to finalize a story that everyone was happy with, but according to Sister Act 2 star Tanya Trotter, the script is now complete. The House of Mouse has also confirmed that the third Sister Act film will debut on Disney Plus rather than getting a theatrical release. 1996's Happy Gilmore was an early success for Adam Sandler, one that helped him cement his place as a Hollywood star after breaking through on Saturday Night Live. Now, as Sandler's movies continue to dominate Netflix, it's no surprise that the streamer has decided to capitalize on one of his most famous characters. The script for the sequel was written by Sandler and his former college roommate, Tim Herlihy. The former told The Hollywood Reporter, Sandler explained, "We're happy where it's at, and this is an exciting time for us. I don't know how all of a sudden our brain said, let's do that. It just kind of happened." While Carl Weathers has sadly passed away since the first film's release, Christopher McDonald is set to return as Happy's uptight rival Shooter McGavin. Benny Safdie will also appear, and Sandler has also confirmed a cameo by NFL star Travis Kelce. The film went into production in September 2024. The official Netflix X account marked the occasion by sharing an image of the classic Boston Bruins jersey that Sandler wore in the original film. Dodgeball, a true underdog story, was a huge success in 2004, making $168 million at the global box office against a $20 million budget.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a ball. What?
But it wasn't until 2023 that news of a sequel broke, with Vince Vaughn returning to play gym owner Pete LaFleur. Jordan Van Dyne is writing the script based on a premise proposed by Vaughn, though it's unclear if the original film's writer and director Ross and Marshall Thurber will be involved. The rest of the cast of Dodgeball may well return, but nothing has been confirmed yet. Fans would no doubt love to see the major players reprise their roles, however. Justin Long has said that he would love to do it, but he's also revealed that Ben Stiller has trepidations about the project. He told comicbook.com, "It's very risky. You don't want to on the original. You want something just as good." So I think he's a little wary of that, of trying to recreate something that was very specific to that time, but I hope he comes around on it. For now, there's been no concrete information in terms of plot, though Long also revealed in his comicbook.com interview that Vince has a great idea for it, and it's just a matter of getting Ben on board. Since it's in development at 20th Century Studios, Dodgeball 2 will likely stream on Hulu or Disney+, but there's still no telling when this one might come out. The Shrek franchise exploded after the release of the first film in 2001, and that movie has since been followed up by sequels, stage musicals, video games, comics, and more. While viewers got the chance to return to the world inhabited by the not-so-jolly green ogre with the 2022 spin-off Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, the last proper Shrek movie was released back in 2010. That said, a fifth entry in the main franchise was announced in 2016, and while much has happened in Hollywood since then, Shrek 5 is still in the works. Illumination Entertainment CEO Chris Meledandri, whose studio is working with DreamWorks on Shrek 5, spoke to Variety in 2023 about the film. He said, "You look at what the core elements are that audiences have loved, and you do your very best to honor those core elements. And then you're hard at work to build story elements and new characters that take you to brand new places. The original cast is a huge part of that." Thankfully, Meledandri got his wish. In July 2024, the official DreamWorks Animation X account dropped a brief animation along with an exciting announcement. Shrek 5 is coming to theaters on July 1st, 2026, and Mike Myers, Eddie Murphy, and Cameron Diaz will all reprise their iconic roles. Shrek 5 isn't the only movie in the Shrek universe that's currently in the pipeline. According to Eddie Murphy, DreamWorks is also working on a spin-off about Shrek's mouthy sidekick, Donkey.
"I will always be here to make sure nobody bothers you."
Donkey.
Yes, Rumi?
You're bothering me.
When Murphy sat down for an interview with Collider's Steve Weintraub to promote Beverly Hills Cop Axel F in June 2024, he revealed that he had already started working on the fifth Shrek film. He added, "I did this. I recorded the first act, and we'll be doing it this year. We'll finish it up. Shrek's coming out, and Donkey's gonna have his own movie. We're gonna do Donkey as well. So we're gonna do a Shrek, and we're doing a Donkey." When Weintraub asked if the two films were being made back to back, Murphy said, "No, not at the same time. I started recording Shrek. I think it's coming out in 2025, and we're doing a Donkey one next." The fact that the Donkey spin-off is being made separately from Shrek 5 means it probably won't hit theaters for several years, but the fact that it's actually happening will be enough to get fans of the franchise excited. In fact, many are of the opinion that Donkey should have had his own movie before Puss in Boots. As one Redditor observed, "It's astounding that it took this long to greenlight a Donkey spin-off." Kingpin was a box office bomb that quickly became a cult classic. News of a second Kingpin film broke in 2021 with director duo Peter and Bobby Farrelly set to return. Peter Farrelly told Slash Film in 2024 that they were still working on the script, however. He said, "We're not quite there yet. Writing is hard. I want to get it right, so we're still bouncing around ideas. We're not sure, but we are developing it, yes." Like most movies in the early stages of development, there's not much known regarding Kingpin 2's potential release date, plot, or stars. The first movie boasted a large cast of talented actors, and fans will no doubt be hoping that, at the very least, Woody Harrelson and Bill Murray will return as Roy Munson and Big Earn McCracken, respectively. It's anyone's guess when Kingpin 2 will arrive, but odds are it won't be until 2026 at the earliest. 2020 saw the release of a surprisingly clever sequel in Bill and Ted Face the Music, which reunited Alex Winter and Keanu Reeves as Bill S. Preston Esquire and Ted Logan 29 years after the previous film in the franchise. It appears that the journey of the Wild Stallions may not be finished either. During an appearance on The Sarah O'Connell Show, Winter revealed that a fourth film was in the early stages of development.
We're tinkering with a fourth movie idea that all of us like, and the guys are gonna write.
Winter made it clear that things are very much up in the air right now, but the fact that a script is even in the works will be music to the ears of Bill and Ted fans.
Excellent!
Intriguingly, Winter also revealed that the premise for the fourth film was obvious, but it's anyone's guess where the franchise will take Bill and Ted next. Many people have been asking if there will be a sequel to 2021's Free Guy, and the answer is maybe. Seeing as the ending of the first film left things pretty open, a sequel certainly would make sense. The original also did well upon release, despite the problems posed by the COVID-19 pandemic. And in 2022, director Sean Levy told Collider that Free Guy 2 is very much happening. He said, "It's still in development. It's something that Disney and Fox want badly." One thing Levy was keen to stress in his interview is that he wants to take it slow with the sequel, preferring to make sure they can produce a great movie before anything gets going. Levy shared another update on the film in July 2024 while promoting Deadpool and Wolverine, and it wasn't what fans of the original wanted to hear. Speaking to The Hollywood Reporter, the filmmaker revealed that nothing has stuck yet in terms of a story, and that, if they couldn't find a good angle, they may just walk away from the the proposed sequel altogether. He said, "We've worked for 2 years on ideas and scripts. I'm less certain now because we're really proud of the movie and we don't need to make sequels. If we don't crack a story that feels very worth making, we'd rather just make a different movie." You may be surprised to learn that the Kevin Smith cult hit Mallrats has a sequel on the way. Smith dropped the bomb that he was creating a follow-up titled Twilight of the Mallrats in 2020. While the first movie is far from Smith's most acclaimed project, it has a loyal fan base, and news of a sequel seems to have gotten people excited. At one stage, Smith attempted to create a Mallrats TV series about Brody and his daughter, so there's a good chance he'll return to that concept for Twilight of the Mallrats. Shannon Doherty, who sadly died from breast cancer in July 2024, even got a chance to read the script before her passing.
It's sweet.
Fun, celebration.
And nostalgic.
Yes.
It's nostalgic, but like in a really, really, really good way.
Speaking to People magazine, Smith revealed that Doherty really wanted to do the sequel and that her death has made him more determined than ever to get it off the ground. The filmmaker revealed that Doherty's role in the original film gave it a big boost. He said, "It was weird when it came out. It didn't do well. But when we first came to the Comic-Con 29 years ago, man, we were embraced, and we were largely embraced because of her, because she had the credibility in the crowd." The Jumanji franchise was given a shot of adrenaline with the release of 2017's Jumanji: Welcome to the Jungle. That film spawned a sequel, 2019's Jumanji: The Next Level, which hinted at yet another movie with a mid-credits scene. Soon afterward, Dwayne Johnson revealed that another sequel was indeed in the works. Johnson has even spilled some potential plot details, revealing that the villain from The Next Level was actually an avatar, and that the upcoming sequel will explore who was playing him. COVID-19 mucked up development plans for the next Jumanji film, but director Jake Kasdan is still moving forward with the film. Kasdan indicated he'd bring the entire cast back, so expect to see Johnson, Kevin Hart, Jack Black, and Karen Gillan reprising their roles. He told NME, "The whole thing, to me, is built on the foundation of those people. The game cast are these brilliant movie stars, these iconic people. There's no news on when we can expect to see the next entry in the franchise." However, speaking to The Hollywood Reporter, Gillan said, "I haven't heard anything about it other than the fact that we will be doing it at some point. So we're also enthusiastic about it. We all love working on those films, and it's just a matter of when." The 2005 Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson comedy Wedding Crashers is one of those ridiculous movies that almost everyone loved, and it made a ton of cash at the box office. Unfortunately, a planned follow-up appears to be stuck in development hell. News of a sequel first arose in 2014 from director David Dobkin. He outlined the plot of a potential Wedding Crashers 2, which would have seen Daniel Craig introduced as the king of all wedding crashers. That project never came to light, but 2 years later, Isla Fisher said during an appearance on Today that Vince Vaughn had indicated that a sequel was still in development. Vaughn later told Cinema Blend that Dobkin has a really good idea for the story. Unfortunately, due to scheduling issues, plans to make the sequel were put on hold in 2021. The project wasn't scrapped entirely, however, so there's still a chance Wedding Crashers 2 will eventually see the light of day. 1987 Spaceballs follows 4 heroes fighting the good fight against the title villains in a spoof of the Star Wars trilogy and several other sci-fi classics.
Well, you don't need that, Private. We're right here. Now, what is it?
One of the movie's greatest jokes was the meta-commentary about merchandising, and in one scene, the character Yogurt teases Spaceballs 2, The Search for More Money. It's a throwaway joke that didn't mean much at the time, as there wasn't really any chance that the film would see a sequel. Still, fans have been demanding The Search for More Money for decades, and in 2024, news dropped that they were finally getting their wish. While it probably won't use the title teased in the first film, a sequel is coming from Brooks and co-writer Josh Gad, who will also star. Sadly, several notable Spaceballs actors have died since the first film's release. It's unknown how the sequel will handle the passing of John Candy and Joan Rivers, among others. Whatever Brooks and Gad come up with, fans of the original will no doubt flock to see it. The sequel is being made by Amazon, who declined to comment on plot details or a potential release date when approached by Variety. For his part, Gad remained tight-lipped when he was asked about the project during an appearance at Toronto's Fan Expo Canada in 2024, but he did reveal how Brooks reacted when he first shared his idea for the sequel. According to Gad, Brooks said, "Josh, you've got your finger on the pulse." That's high praise from a comedy legend, and this update will no doubt have fans of the original excited about what's to come.
Magicians, a deadly fisherman, and a certain yellow electric mouse all getting another cinematic go-round in these upcoming mystery sequels that promise to blow our minds. In 2009, Guy Ritchie brought Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's legendary detective back to the big screen, with Robert Downey Jr. playing one of the most memorable on-screen versions of Sherlock Holmes, alongside Jude Law as his faithful assistant Watson. It was Ritchie's most successful movie at the box office at that point, and a sequel was all but guaranteed, with A Game of Shadows arriving just 2 years later. Even before it was released, it was announced that a third film was already being written. It's been rough for Sherlock Holmes 3 in the years since though, with script rewrites, planned production production start dates that came and went, Ritchie eventually bowing out, and then the COVID-19 pandemic putting the project on indefinite hiatus. But then 2023 finally brought fresh news, as Downey's wife and producing partner Susan Downey confirmed to The Wrap that the movie was still being worked on. We still don't have a hard release date though, especially now that Downey is working on his big return to the MCU. But as long as he remains passionate, we're confident it will happen soon enough. 2013's Now You See Me is an inventive heist film about a group of stage magicians who rob banks and the wealthy. The impressive ensemble included Woody Harrelson, Jesse Eisenberg, Isla Fisher, Mark Ruffalo, Dave Franco, Morgan Freeman, and Michael Caine, with all but Fisher returning for the sequel. Now You See Me 2 also added Lizzie Kaplan and Daniel Radcliffe into the mix for another complex and mysterious plan.
Follow me. Follow me.
In 2015, a year before the release of Now You See Me 2, it was revealed that the series was destined to be a trilogy. Things went quiet for a bit, but then Eisenberg gave the most hopeful news in years when he confirmed that he had read the finished script and that he expected to be on set within 6 months. The ensuing months saw reveals of various cast members, both new and returning, with July 2024 finally bringing the official announcement to expect Now You See Me 3 in November 2025. 2018's crime drama Den of Thieves wasn't a huge hit, but it nonetheless found a big enough audience to justify a sequel. The original stars Gerard Butler as a Los Angeles detective tasked with bringing down a dangerous criminal organization composed of former United States Marines. But it took a while for the second film to actually come together. During the May 2023 Cannes Film Festival, distributor Briarcliff Entertainment announced that it would be handling the US release of Den of Thieves, Pantera, sometime in the fourth quarter of 2024, with Butler confirmed to be returning. Lionsgate subsequently took over the distribution rights, with the movie now set to debut in theaters in January 2025. A trailer arrived in September 2024, and as Butler promised to Inverse, this one's a lot more fun.
And the cop goes gangster.
With the Scream franchise finding new life in the 2020s, it was all but inevitable that some of its horror contemporaries would also return to the big screen. Sure enough, the I Know What You Did Last Summer series has a fourth entry in the works, marking its first new installment since 2006's I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer. But unlike that film, which was a standalone sequel that didn't bring back any cast members from the first two movies, I Know What You Did Last Summer 4 is set to have Freddie Prinze Jr. return as Ray Bronson. As of September 2024, fellow OG cast member Jennifer Love Hewitt hasn't officially joined this outing, though she is actively in talks to do so. Little is known about the plot, other than that it will connect to the first two films and will not be a total reboot as previously speculated. It's currently scheduled to be released in theaters on July 18th, 2025. Tom Clancy's 1993 novel Without Remorse was supposed to be adapted into a movie right alongside the author's Jack Ryan-verse adaptations of the 90s, but ultimately it wasn't meant to be. Another attempt at a Without Remorse film was undertaken in the early 2010s, but that too fell apart. The third time proved to be the charm when Michael B. Jordan was booked for the lead role, and it finally saw the light of day on Prime Video in 2021. Jordan had in fact signed on to appear in two connected Tom Clancy movies, as Without Remorse was meant to set the stage for a film based on the better-known Rainbow Six, which had already been adapted into a series of successful video games. While the Without Remorse and Rainbow Six books actually have different lead characters, the Rainbow Six movie has been retooled a bit to feature John Kelly from Without Remorse rather than John Clark from the Rainbow Six novel.
John Clark. It's real creative.
As for when we'll finally get to see Rainbow Six, progress has been a bit quiet since 2023, but there's nothing to suggest it isn't still on the way eventually. 2016's The Accountant features plenty of mystery, as Ben Affleck's protagonist, Christian, has to figure out why his latest client is trying to keep millions of dollars off their account ledger, and why people are being killed to protect that secret. Critical reviews were so-so, but it did well enough financially that a sequel was announced the following year. Due to hit theaters in April 2025, The Accountant 2 brings back most of the principal cast from the original, with Affleck's longtime pal and creative partner Matt Damon signing on to co-produce alongside Affleck. In 2021, director Gavin O'Connor revealed that the plan is to ultimately have an Accountant trilogy, though as of 2024, only the second one has been officially announced. If you've been wondering what Misha Barton has been up to lately, then you may have just missed her turn as Agatha Christie-obsessed florist turned amateur sleuth Miranda Green in 2023's Invitation to a Murder. Set in 1930s England, the movie featured some classic whodunit vibes, a rarity for a genre that is more often about modern reinvention these days. True to the authors and the franchises that it was inspired by, it appears that Invitation to a Murder won't just be a one-and-done adventure for Ms. Green. In fact, the franchise already has a name, the Miranda Green Mysteries, with 2 more titles in the works expects they're both due out in 2025. It's an ambitious undertaking to be sure, but here's hoping that Ms. Green gets to keep solving mysteries for years to come. So get out your magnifying glass and keep an eye out for Murder at the Embassy and the Mystery of the Golden Spear.
What if I can't?
Well, then we probably all die.
2019 was a significant turning point for movie adaptations of video games, as it saw the release of the first 2 video game movies to ever have positive Rotten Tomatoes scores. One of them was, believe it or not, the Angry Birds Movie 2, which came out in August of that year. Arriving a few months earlier was Detective Pikachu, which also set the domestic box office record for video game adaptations, though it would later be bested by Uncharted and the first 2 Sonic the Hedgehog flicks. So clearly, Detective Pikachu had the numbers to justify a sequel. In fact, a second film was already in the works before the first one even started breaking records. But progress was slow. So slow, in fact, that Justice Smith said in 2021 that he was no longer optimistic that the follow-up was still happening. But 2023 brought an update that Portlandia co-creator Jonathan Kreisel was being courted to direct the sequel, thereby confirming that it was still an active project. That remains the last official news on Detective Pikachu 2, but hopefully we'll be hearing more soon. The Holmes family has been quite busy on both the big and small screens lately. In addition to the upcoming Robert Downey Jr. starring sequel and sporadic rumblings of a possible 5th season of the BBC Sherlock, there's also the potential 3rd installment to Netflix's own unique spin on the property, Enola Holmes. Millie Bobby Brown plays the title character, the teenage sister of Sherlock who's trying to make a name for herself in the sleuthing game. Other members of the Holmes clan are involved as well, from oldest sibling Mycroft to their mother Eudora. These movies offer a lighter, funnier, and more family-friendly angle to the classic franchise, with Henry Cavill playing a much kinder and less cynical version of Sherlock than other portrayals of the character. Enola Holmes 2 arrived in November 2022, and November 2023 brought confirmation that a script for a 3rd film was in the works. Then in August 2024, it was reported that Enola Holmes 3 was set to begin filming in early 2025.
Perhaps you could come to Baker Street from time to time.
After co-writing and directing Doctor Strange, Scott Derrickson began working on its sequel before creative differences led him to abandon the project. So he and his longtime collaborator C. Robert Cargill returned to their horror roots with The Black Phone, which came out in June 2022. With a story about a mysterious child kidnapper known as the Grabber set in 1970s Colorado, the modestly budgeted thriller ended up being a surprise box office hit. In August 2022, Derrickson began hinting at a sequel and saying that the studio was pushing for one after how well the original performed. The Black Phone 2 was eventually officially announced, with most of the original cast set to return, including Grabber portrayer Ethan Hawke. An intended June 2025 release date was also announced, although that date has since been pushed back a bit to October 2025. 2018's A Simple Favor saw director Paul Feig continuing his successful streak of inventive hybrid comedies. Starring Blake Lively and Anna Kendrick as unlikely friends who bond over sharing sordid secrets about their past, the movie did respectable box office numbers, especially considering its fairly modest $20 million budget, and a sequel was eventually announced in 2022. Feig, Lively, and Kendrick are all set to return for A Simple Favor 2, with the only thing known about the story is that it's positioned as a direct sequel to the original. Since the first one came out, Feig's latest releases have been suffering from disappointing critical notices, which might be why this would be his first ever sequel. Lively could also use some positive PR herself these days, after the awkward and controversial news cycle following the release of It Ends With Us. There's no hard timeline yet for the release of A Simple Favor 2, though Feig has confirmed that filming wrapped in May 2024, so it shouldn't be a terribly long wait.
You know, Paul is pulling out all the stops and bringing the fans what they loved so much about the first.
Arguably the biggest ongoing mystery film franchise right now is the Knives Out series, which thus far includes the 2019 original and 2022's Glass Onion. The only real connecting thread between them thus far has been writer-director Rian Johnson and quirky detective Benoit Blanc, played by Daniel Craig. Blanc is set to return once again in Wake Up Dead Man, scheduled to hit Netflix sometime in 2025. Like the previous 2 Benoit Blanc mysteries, Wake Up Dead Man will feature a new cast of characters played by an entirely fresh set of actors. This time the ensemble of suspects includes Josh Brolin, Glenn Close, Jeremy Renner, Kerry Washington, and Thomas Hayden Church, among others. Nothing is known about the plot, but expect a lot of twists and turns and double and triple crosses as Blanc must once again solve what is likely another murder. It seems as though Craig doesn't yet have the same franchise fatigue he began to experience while playing James Bond, as he told Variety in 2022, "If Ryan keeps writing them, I'll keep doing them."
From Arendelle to Pandora to the depths of hell itself, Hollywood sure knows how to take us places, and we're set to revisit a few fantasy favorites over the next few years, too. For all the backlash they get, the live-action remakes of classic animated Disney films do offer the studio two major advantages. On the one hand, they usually make several $100 million at the domestic box office alone, making them reliable investments in an otherwise uncertain period for the company. They also allow new voices to reimagine and expand upon the worlds we all know and love, breathing new life into some of the most beloved stories of all time.
You're entirely bonkers. But I'll tell you a secret. All the best people are.
So maybe it's no surprise that the studio has a few sequels up its sleeve too. For example, Disney is apparently eager to find ways back into the world of Aladdin after the 2019 Guy Ritchie remake. Billy Magnuson's Prince Anders is seemingly still on track for a Disney Plus spin-off movie, while the Mothership film had a sequel greenlit in early 2020. Sadly, as the coronavirus delayed and derailed years' worth of movies coming out of Hollywood, Aladdin 2 was no doubt impacted in some way as well. Another factor impeding the movie's development is likely Will Smith's involvement, with the Academy Award-winning actor's future in question since he slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars in 2022. But given that there's been no official cancellation and that Smith recently blew everyone away at the box office with Bad Boys Ride or Die, it seems likely that Aladdin 2 will take audiences back to Agrabah at some point or another. You're probably aware that there are many Avatar sequels currently in development from James Cameron and 20th Century Studios. After all, the writer-director confirmed as far back as 2010 that he had plans for at least 2 sequels. The first film's warm reception and historic financial success gave him and his collaborators all the steam they needed to forge ahead at full speed. Now, after the roaring success of Avatar: The Way of Water, a third installment is on the way.
I see you.
See you.
At the 2024 D23 Expo, it was revealed that the third film would be titled Avatar: Fire and Ash, in reference to the new volcanic environment that the film is set to explore. According to statements from the cast and crew, this environment is home to a new Na'vi clan known as the Ash People, who will serve as the story's antagonists. Fire and Ash and The Way of Water were originally intended to be one film, which could mean that Fire and Ash will serve as the most dramatic and momentous entry in the series to date. It's currently slated for release in December 2025. Frozen is one of Disney's most successful original stories of the past 2 decades. Its catchy tunes and winning combination of magic, heart, and humor captivating audiences of all ages across the globe. Considering the movie grossed a whopping $1.3 billion at the global box office, it wasn't all that surprising when a sequel was produced. And when that sequel surpassed its predecessor to a global total of $1.4 billion, it was inevitable that Frozen would become Disney's next long-running cinematic series. Sure enough, in 2023, Disney CEO Bob Iger announced that the studio was developing sequels to several of its most popular animated films, including a 5th Toy Story and a 3rd Frozen, with the latter film heading for a 2026 release date. Immediately, the film was notable for potentially making the Frozen series the first theatrical trilogy released by Walt Disney Animation Studios. Toy Story and Cars had previously been produced by Pixar. At 2024's D23 Expo, the studio confirmed the core cast members would return for Frozen 3 and shared concept art of Anna and Elsa on horseback. Sadly, it was also announced that the film had been delayed from 2026 to November 24, 2027. Legendary Entertainment's MonsterVerse has mostly been a roaring success since it began with Gareth Edwards' 2014 film Godzilla, and the franchise only seemed to pick up steam when Godzilla himself began sharing the screen with King Kong.
Let them fight.
After appearing in the period prequel Kong Skull Island, Kong co-starred in 2021's Godzilla vs. Kong and 2024's Godzilla Kong: The New Empire. Both films were financially successful, leading to some rumblings that Legendary would produce a 3rd film featuring the pair. Some of these rumors came from director Adam Wingard himself, who directed both previous Godzilla Kong films. Ahead of the release of The New Empire, he told Discussing Film, "I definitely think there's more story to this, and I think that I have more story to tell." In May 2024, Legendary announced that it had begun development on a film to succeed The New Empire, although the studio didn't reveal much else. It was revealed soon after that Wingard will not return to direct or write the movie, despite his previous comments. For screenwriting duties, the studio has tapped Shang-Chi writer Dave Callahan, and I Am Mother director Grant Sputori will direct. In 2022, Netflix delighted subscribers with the animated fantasy adventure The Sea Beast, which featured Carl Urban as a swashbuckling sailor dedicated to slaying the titular monster. The movie was a massive critical success, drawing widespread acclaim and earning an Academy Award nomination for Best Animated Feature Film. As of January 2023, The Sea Beast was the most-watched animated film in Netflix history. So it makes perfect sense that Netflix would get to work on a second voyage for the cast and crew of The Sea Beast, announcing in 2023 that writer-director Chris Williams had been given the go-ahead to start work on The Sea Beast 2. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, the Disney alum shared that while he'd never expected to make a sequel, there are some themes and ideas from the first film that he's excited to revisit and explore. He said, "Suddenly Jacob is a parent to an especially willful kid, right? And so when you see them on the dock, you know that's not what parenting looks like. It's far messier, far more complicated, and more trying at times than that. So the idea of the challenges of this new family became interesting to me." Williams added that he was also intrigued by the future of other monster hunters and how they might react to the first film's ending.
It can take so long to make an animated film, it's easy for fans of a franchise to forget there's another one in the works. These are the animated sequels you can expect in the coming years. The DreamWorks-produced, Universal-distributed film The Bad Guys hit theaters in 2022, and it didn't take long for it to spawn a franchise. The success of the first film, which follows a criminal gang of anthropomorphic animals as they attempt to leave their shady ways behind, helped usher in 2 TV specials titled The Bad Guys: A Very Bad Holiday and The Bad Guys: Haunted Heist in 2023 and 2024. In March 2024, DreamWorks revealed that The Bad Guys 2 would arrive on August 1st, 2025. The film's official logline reads, "The Bad Guys 2 follows the crackerjack criminal crew of animal outlaws who are struggling to find trust and acceptance in their newly minted lives as good guys. However, they're pulled out of retirement and forced to do one last job by an all-female squad of criminals. Fans of the original will be happy to know the original cast are returning, so the likes of Sam Rockwell, Awkwafina, and Zazie Beetz are expected to reprise their roles."
Webs, you feel like a girl's trip? Yes.
In July 2024, news broke that Natasha Lyonne had reportedly joined the sequel, though her character's details remain unknown. The first Zootopia film hit theaters in 2016, so it's been a while since Judy Hopps and Nick Wilde saved the titular city from corruption. The film was a massive hit, pulling in more than $1 billion at the global box office. With figures that large, it's hardly surprising that a sequel is coming. Zootopia 2 was announced by Disney head honcho Bob Iger in 2023, and the first footage from the film was shared the following year at the company's D23 event. The clip depicted Judy and Nick in Marsh Market looking for a snake named Gary, with all kinds of silly imagery like tattooed hippos and seals being served algae on a plate around them. Both Goodwin and Bateman are reprising their roles. It was also revealed that Academy Award winner Ke Huy Quan is joining the cast as Gary. Jared Bush, who co-helmed the first movie, will direct from a script that he wrote himself. The Mouse House has set a release date of November 26, 2025.
Hang in there.
The first live-action film adaptation of the classic video game series, Super Mario Bros., was a cinematic monstrosity that's renowned for how terrible it was. It took 30 years for another big-screen Hollywood adaptation to arrive, and fortunately, this one was animated, which allowed it to hone in on what makes the world of Mario so special.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's kind of my thing.
The Super Mario Bros. Movie was a smash hit at the box office, raking in over $1.3 billion worldwide. Hollywood doesn't typically pass on sequels when a film brings in that much cash, so a follow-up is naturally on the way. News of the Super Mario Bros. Movie 2 arrived on March 10, 2024, also known as Mario Day, from Illumination and Nintendo. While they didn't reveal much about the project other than its existence, they did reveal that it would be dropping in several territories in April 2026, with the United States set for an April release. The upcoming sequel is already generating a lot of chatter, including from the cast. For example, Bowser voice actor Jack Black told GameSpot he wants Pedro Pascal to voice Wario. Including the famous antagonist, who is basically the anti-Mario, would be an excellent way to move the franchise forward. But the direction the sequel will take is anyone's guess at this point. The Toy Story franchise is the gift that keeps on giving for Disney and Pixar. The first film was a smash hit, helping to make Pixar one of the leading animation studios, and the sequels have all gone down just as well. After Toy Story 3, it seemed like the toys' time was at an end. But then Toy Story 4 came out of nowhere and blew everyone away. In the process, it reminded viewers that Woody, Buzz, and the rest of the gang remain some of the best characters in the Mouse House roster. But how can they stay relevant in this day and age? The answer to that is simple. Toy Story 5 is going to bring the crew into the digital age. stage. As co-director Andrew Stanton said at the D23 convention in 2024, "Let's be real, toys have some serious competition these days with phones, tablets, and technology everywhere. This time around, it's toy meets tech." A teaser image for the upcoming sequel shows the toy gang looking forlorn at the foot of a child's bed as the child in question sits under a blanket, eyes glued to a tablet. It's a clever way to continue the successful series, and there's every chance that Toy Story 5 will smash the box office when it arrives on June 19, 2026. Additionally, it's been confirmed that Woody and the gang will also have to deal with a 50-strong army of malfunctioning Buzz Lightyear action figures in this latest installment, which should make for some hilarious scenes. The Despicable Me franchise has generated over $5.5 billion since it debuted, and that figure is set to grow with the upcoming Minions 3. Shortly after Despicable Me 4 brought in the big bucks in 2024, Illumination and Universal announced that a third film in the Minions spin-off series was in development, with a projected release date of June 30th, 2027. That's a long way off, and as such, there's almost no information about the film's plot, which characters will return outside of the titular creatures, or anything of substance. The last Minions movie was 2022's Minions: The Rise of Gru, which is a prequel like its predecessor. That movie focused on Gru when he was 11, so it's likely that Minions 3 will continue the prequel trend by advancing the plot a few years into the future, possibly with Gru attending the villain school at the Lycée Pabon. In terms of concrete info, we know for sure that Minions 3 will be helmed by Pierre Coffin, the French animator who has voiced the Minions since they first appeared in Despicable Me back in 2010. The first two Sing movies have generated over $1 billion between them, so a third entry made sense for Illumination. So it wasn't a big surprise when the company's CEO, Chris Meledandri, revealed to Variety that Sing 3 was on the cards in 2023. He revealed that the third film would feature characters from the previous films, but, quote, "It will take us into a new world." Meledandri also confirmed that Sing 2 had been a hit on streaming, which let him know that there was still an appetite for the franchise. Despite previously indicating that he was done with the series, Garth Jennings, who wrote and directed Sing and Sing 2, is listed as the writer-director of Sing 3 on IMDb, so it could be that he had a change of heart. The film is due to arrive sometime in the next few years, though no release date has been specified as of fall 2024. While Sony's live-action Spider-Verse films haven't done particularly well of late, it's a different story with its animated Spider-Man movies. The first and second installments in the Spider-Verse trilogy have been spectacular, boasting some of the most beautiful and unique animation in Hollywood history. The franchise has done stellar business at the box office, with the first two films earning over $1 billion between them. But when can we expect the third film? Not for a while yet, it would seem. Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse came out in 2018, and it took another 5 years for Across the Spider-Verse to hit theaters. Given how complex the animation is, this makes sense. The threequel was initially planned for a March 2024 release, though that came and went with no new entry. At this point, Beyond the Spider-Verse likely won't arrive until 2026 or 2027. While Sony hasn't revealed any plot details, the way Across the Spider-Verse ended provides some clues. The third film will probably pick up where the last one finished, with Miles Morales stuck in an alternate reality where his other self has chosen a darker path and become the Prowler. Miles will have to deal with himself, in a manner of speaking, while the plethora of Spider-Man variants from the second film could return in some fashion. The Incredibles is another hugely successful Pixar franchise that exploded in popularity almost the moment it hit theaters. There have only been 2 films, with the first arriving in 2004 and Incredibles 2 coming in 2018. Fortunately, the gap between the second and third film won't be as long.
Well, what are you waiting for?
I don't know. Something amazing, I guess.
Announced at the D23 convention in 2024, The Incredibles 3 reveal amounted to nothing but a shot of the title, but it was enough to send attendees into an enthusiastic round of applause. The only information that's come out since is that director Brad Bird, who helmed the first 2 films, will return for Incredibles 3. There's nothing concrete in terms of release date or plot just yet, but it's likely that Bird will repurpose some stuff he never got the chance to use in the second film. Speaking to Entertainment Weekly, he revealed that he had to cut a lot of things from the second film when the powers that be decided to swap the release dates of Incredibles 2 and Toy Story 4, effectively shaving a year off the former's production time. He explained, "There were a lot of ideas that we had on this film that could be reused, whether it's another Incredibles film or something else."